bagong revelasyon ni Police Colonel Royina Garma nang binulgar niya sa huling hearing ng Quadcom na siya ang inatasan mismo ni Pangulong Duterte na maghanap ng tao sa PNP na maasahan niya sa pag-iimplementa ng drug war alinsunod sa modelong ginawa niya sa Davao City. To the lead chair of the Quad Committee, Representative Barbers, to the chairs of the other committees constituting the Quadcom, the members of the Quadcom, members of Congress, and also good morning to the other resource persons invited for today's hearing. Actually po, I have both a statement and a presentation. Medyo mahaba po, and I was advised right before the hearing that I should cut it down. Although mahaba po talagang presentation ko. Best efforts, I will try to abbreviate.
Mr. Chair, before our former senator proceeds, can I just request that she puts the mic a little bit closer, just so that we can hear her voice louder. Thank you very much.
Okay. Salamat po. I attend this hearing with a deep sense of irony. I have not forgotten that in September and October of 2016, the House Committee on Justice conducted the inquiry on the Bilibid drug trade. However, unlike this hearing, the real subject of that hearing was not really about the drug trade. The real subject of that 2016 House Committee hearing was all about destroying me for conducting a Senate inquiry which in so many aspects was like this one. The only difference between this hearing and that Senate hearing is that my committee inquiry was 8 years earlier and Duterte was at the peak of power. Sa Senate hearing pong yun ay kinundin ako yung drug war ni Duterte. At nagmakaawa pa po ako na tigilan na ito habang ilang daan pa lang ang mga nagiging biktima at wag na sanang paabutin pa ng libo-libo. Ngunit sa kasawiang palad, wala pong nakinig sa akin, lalo na may mga mayorya po tayo ng mga senador at congressman na ayon kay Senator Bongo noong isang araw, ay walang sawa sa pagpalakpak kay Pangulong Duterte sa bawat banggit niya sa pagsulong na madugong drug war sa kanyang mga zona. Sa halip ako ay pinaaresto, pinakulong, binusalan ng halos 7 taon gamit ang mga gawa-gawang ebidensya katulad ng testimonya ng mga ilang Bilibid drug lords at inmates. I'd like to say that the objective for targeting me was threefold: to silence me, to destroy my credibility, and to serve as an example to others. By doing all three, my message to the people against Duterte's EJKs would no longer be heard or listened to, and no one else would dare to act as a messenger after seeing what was done to me. Since all three were achieved, the EJKs became accepted by public officials and the general population. This led to more killings because no one was arresting and prosecuting the killer cops and the vigilantes. This was impunity as never seen before in the Philippines outside of Davao. Sobrang nakakalungkot na ngayon lamang nagkaroon ng napaka-komprehensibong pagtalakay ang Kamara de Representante sa drug war at mga EJK pagkatapos ng tumambak ang libo-libong bangkay na naging biktima ng drug war. Ayon nga po kay Professor Randy David, marahil ang pandinig na ito ng Kamara ay katumbas na rin ng aming pinapangarap na Truth Commission na hihimay sa mga tunay na pangyayari sa 6 na taon na pagpaslang ng ating sariling gobyerno at kapulisan sa libo-libo nating mga kababayan. But right now, I don't want to discuss it, but my position is that pwede pa sigurong i-consider yung creation ng Truth Commission. At tingnan din ho natin na hindi lang po pagpatay ang naging resulta ng war on drugs ni Duterte. There are also those who were unjustly imprisoned based on planted and fabricated evidence. Ako nga po yung one of the very first victims of that. Ngayon naman po, ito na rin po ang pinatutuo yung sa bagong revelasyon ni Police Colonel Royina Garma nang binulgar niya sa huling hearing ng Quadcom na siya ang inatasan mismo ni Pangulong Duterte na maghanap ng tao sa PNP na maasahan niya sa pag-iimplementa ng drug war alinsunod sa modelong ginawa niya sa Davao City. That's why my presentation, and I'll try to really make it brief, would cover four matters, four topics. One is the recent disclosure of Kerwin Espinosa. I'd like to comment on that. Two is the importance of the 2009 CHR investigation of the DDS to the inquiry of this committee. Three is the revelation of former Police Colonel Royina Garma that the drug war was modeled after the Davao anti-drug campaign. And I'd like also to touch the relevance of Republic Act number 9851 on crimes against humanitarian law, genocide, and other crimes against humanity in enforcing accountability. So ito na po yung aking presentation. Although meron po akong mga i-skip because actually part of my presentation are some videos, but hindi ko na po yon ipapakita because of the limited time. So nung narinig ko nga po yung testimonya ni Kerwin Espinosa last hearing, it was Senator Bato de la Rosa who ordered him to lie under oath before the Senate in November 2016. Hindi na po ako nagulat doon. Si Kerwin actually already retracted his fabricated testimony against me in April 2022, around the same time that Rafael Ragos, the former Bucor OIC and NBI Deputy Director, also recanted in accusing me of receiving money from bilibid drug lords. Doon po sa hearing sa Senado, ay talaga namang sinabi ko doon na lahat po ng mga sinasabi nila tungkol sa akin, so yung pagiging protector ko daw nung illegal drug trade ni Mr. Kerwin Espinosa, ay wala ho yung katotohanan. I vehemently, categorically, and firmly went on record in denying those accusations. Sinabi ko rin noon na yung mga sinasabi nila Kerwin Espinosa, ni Ronnie Dayan, and ni Colonel Espinido ay wala talagang katotohanan. In the first place, hindi nga sila magkakilala. Nauna na nilang sinabi yon before they were presented before the Senate na hindi sila mga magkakilala. Dali lang po. So ngayon po, nandito si Colonel Espinido. I saw him earlier. If the Quad Committee would be so kind as to indulge me, gusto ko sana makiusap kay Colonel Espinido. Sabihin niya na yung katotohanan. Kasi yung all he said during that Senate hearing was just let God be the witness to my innocence or something to that effect. Sana po ngayon, Colonel Espinido, sabihin niyo na rin po ang katotohanan. Kung pwede sabihin nyo na rin o i-corroborate nyo yung sinabi ni Kerwin na si then PNP Chief De La Rosa and now Senator De La Rosa ang involved or responsible for ordering the three of you to fabricate accusations against me. Now, sinabi ko rin po kanina na I'd like to discuss the relevance of the CHR investigation in the Quadcom inquiry. Maybe at this point, I cannot yet do that. Sasabihin ko lang po na mahalaga yung naging CHR investigation namin in 2009 into the DDS killings. Kasi pwede itong maging reference point in terms of painting a picture of the organization, the Davao Death Squad, the operation, and the implementation of the Duterte drug war from the barangay to the national level. Kasi sinabi na nga ho ni Colonel Garma, yung kanyang mga revelasyon na the extrajudicial killings, yung mga operations under Duterte's drug war beginning in 2016 was just patterned after the Davao model. And the Davao model can only refer or can only mean the DDS model or the Davao Death Squad. skip muna po natin yan. Doon naman sa affidavit po ni Colonel Garma, presented and expounded upon the last hearing, I'd like to share some information we got and some findings on the Davao model of payment and rewards mentioned by Colonel Garma. This information is limited to the facts uncovered during the 2009 CHR investigation on the Davao Death Squad. Next slide, please. The history of the DDS can be divided into two. The period from 1988 to 1998 and the period from 2001 to 2016. So may break po. The break in these two periods coincides with then Mayor Rodrigo Duterte's hiatus as mayor of Davao City when he was elected congressman instead of mayor in 1998 due to the 3-term limit. So for brevity, I'll refer to the former mayor as MRRD. According to a witness in the 2009 CHR investigation, during the first period of the DDS from 1988 to 2000, the assassins were paid 15,000 for every victim. 5,000 goes to the police handler and 10,000 to the assassins, who at the time consisted of rebel returnees aside from the active duty policemen who were their handlers. Their safe house was located inside the Nobelcom compound in Barangay San Pedro, Davao. After the summary execution of targeted victims, the DDS members would regroup at their safe house and divide the reward. During that time, MRRD sometimes personally gave out the kill orders and the reward money directly to the assassins themselves. Upon the return of MRRD as mayor of Davao in 2001, the DDS was upgraded into the Heinous Crimes Investigation Section, or HCIS, located at the Almendras Gym compound. The HCIS was an official unit of the DCPO, or the Davao City Police Office. The HCIS consists of both active duty PNP and civilian abanteros, or hitmen. Most of the hitmen are rebel returnees. They are supervised by PNP handlers. Each handler supervises 3 members. The task of the PNP handler is to give orders to his members as well as be responsible for their protection. According to the CHR witness, he was given a regular monthly salary of 5,000. During this time, the reward given to a team for every victim was anywhere from 13,000 to 15,000. 3,000 to 5,000 goes to the PNP handler. 7,000 to 8,000 was shared among the rebel returnees, and 500 to 1,000 to civilian informants. The HCIS civilian personnel or rebel returnees directly received salaries as auxiliary service workers. The funds for their salaries came from the office of the mayor. Functions have also been specialized, with members being designated to do either office support or field work. A team of 1 PNP handler and 3 civilian abanteros was given an average of 3 targets every month. May I now go also to the revelation of Arturo Las Cañas. Yung mga naging findings po namin, although yung iba po doon, mga unofficial findings ng CHR investigation, were eventually confirmed by Edgar Matobato and Arturo Las Cañas when they went public at the Senate with their stories and executed affidavits in 2016 and 2017. Matobato executed an affidavit and was filed with the Ombudsman as a criminal complaint against Duterte and other DDS members. The criminal complaint is still pending sa Office of the Ombudsman. The most comprehensive account on the DDS from its founding in 1988 up to 2016 is the affidavit of Arturo Las Cañas, which was submitted to the ICC. This affidavit consists of 186 pages of gory details on the sociopathic behavior of Duterte as founder and leader of the DDS. Yung 186-page affidavit po yan, actually it was serialized in an investigative or feature story of Rappler in November 2021. Apparently, Rappler got hold of a copy of this affidavit and also the ICC's third agreement on limited use of information dated November 11, 2020. This instrument gave Las Cañas limited immunity as a witness in the ICC investigation on the Philippine War on Drugs. Noong 2024 naman po, Las Cañas reiterated the contents of his ICC affidavit in another serialized feature, this time published by Veria Files, entitled Conversations with Arturo Las Cañas. Ito naman po ang sinasabi ni Las Cañas, that during the period 1988 to 1998, so I'm just talking here about the organization, kasi napakadami po ng mga sinabi niya sa kanyang comprehensive affidavit. So I'm focusing on the organization of DDS dahil nga ito yung naging model ng drug war. According to Las Cañas' ICC affidavit, during the period 1988 to 1998, when the DDS was constituted as the Anti-Crime Task Force of MRRD, DDS members were paid anywhere from 10,000 to 20,000 for every victim. This was the reward for the ordinary victims. Pag mga matataas naman po, the so-called special project killings, they were rewarded anywhere from 100,000 to 1 million pesos, depending on the status of the target. Civilian hitmen called force multipliers were given 3,000 to 5,000 per victim as their share in this reward. The DDS logistics and finances came from the Peace and Order or Intel Fund of MRRD. This includes weekly gas allowance, monthly cash allowance, and Christmas cash gifts. Skip ko na muna po yung iba. Next slide, please. Las Cañas also confirmed the CHR findings on the organizational structure of the DDS under the HCIS, or Heinous Crimes Investigation Section, from 2001 to 2016. And this is as follows. MRRD, alias Superman, as the highest leader and mastermind of the DDS. SPO4 Sanson Benaventura as the logistics, finance, and death clearance feature or officer. SPO3 Arturo Las Cañas as overall team leader for operations and planning. SPO4 Bienvenido Laud as team handler and in charge of the Laud Quarry mass grave. And SPO3 Jim Tan as team handler and in charge of the Mandug mass grave. Actually, mas intricate yung inattach ni Mr. Las Cañas sa kanyang ICC affidavit about the organizational structure of the DDS. What I just mentioned, I just simplified it to show who are really at the top of the DDS hierarchy. Most of the policemen handlers and their respective teams of civilian force multipliers were under the command of Arturo Las Cañas as operations and planning leader of the DDS. So sinabi ko po na that must be the Davao model na binanggit ni Colonel Garma. Finally, by way of just sharing my knowledge, last na po ito, kung pwede po sana. Tungkol na lang muna po sa the law, RA 9851. Kasi hindi po ito masyadong alam ng karamihan. We do have a law entitled An Act Defining and Penalizing Crimes against International Humanitarian Law, Genocide and Other Crimes Against Humanity, Organizing Jurisdiction, Designating Special Courts, and for related purposes. This was enacted in December 11, 2009. It punishes almost the same crimes mentioned in the Rome Statute over which the ICC has jurisdiction. RA 9851 was enacted almost 2 years before the Philippines finally joined the ICC on November 1, 2011, after the Senate ratified the Rome Statute in August 2011. The crime of EJ case carried out by state security forces and their agents in the implementation of the war on drugs fall under the general category of other crimes against humanity under Section 6, which consists of acts committed as part of a widespread or systematic attack directed against any civilian population with knowledge of the attack. These acts include willful killing, so murder, extermination, murder, multiple murder, torture, and enforced disappearance, among others. The penalty for the crime of systematic attack against any civilian population resulting in death is reclusion perpetua. It's a non-bailable crime. According to Section 8, a person who orders, solicits, or merely induces the systematic attack on the civilian population and which thereafter occurs or is attempted is liable as a principal. The same applies to anyone who contributes to the commission of the crime by a group of persons acting with a common purpose. Section 9 provides that official capacity as a head of state or government shall in no case exempt a person from criminal responsibility under this act, nor shall it in and of itself constitute a ground for reduction of sentence. The crimes defined and penalized under that law, their prosecution and the execution of sentences imposed on their account shall not be subject to any prescription. Pwede po silang tugusin or tugisin habang buhay. Finally, and this one is important, hindi po ito masyadong napapansin, Section 17 on jurisdiction provides that, quote, relevant Philippine authorities may dispense with the investigation or prosecution of a crime punishable under this act if another court or international tribunal is already conducting the investigation or undertaking the prosecution of such crime. Instead, the authorities may surrender or extradite suspected or accused persons in the Philippines to the appropriate international court, if any, or to another state pursuant to the applicable extradition laws and treaties. Napakasimple po, sa aking palagay, sa aking pagkaalam, napakasimple po ang ibig sabihin ng batas na ito. Hindi pa tayo miyembro ng ICC o ng Rome Statute, kinilala na natin ang kapangyarihan ng international bodies like the ICC na imbestigahan at litisin ang mga krimeng nasasaad sa RA 9851. Hindi pa tayo miyembro ng ICC, meron na ho tayong general na pahintulot sa anumang mga international body katulad ng ICC na tugisin at litisin ang mga Pilipino na magiging kasabwat sa mga tinatawag na crimes against humanity katulad ng malawakang EJK sa ilalim ng drug war. Hindi pa tayo miyembro ng ICC na ilahad na natin sa batas na yan na kung sakali may international body na nag-iimbestiga ng crimes against humanity, maaari nating isurrender o i-extradite sa international body na katulad ng ICC sa The Hague, Netherlands, and mga sangkot sa mga ganitong klase ng krimen. I do recognize, and I think you will agree with me, that it will be totally discretionary on the part of the Philippine authorities. Just like sa mga sa extradition po natin, na pwede natin na isurrender muna, ipaubaya muna in the requesting party, yung isang akusado na covered sa extradition treaty, pero nasa atin pa rin yun kung gagawin natin yun. Kaya ko po to sinasabi, kasi through this law, we have recognized the jurisdiction of the ICC over crimes against humanity committed in the Philippines, even before we ratified the Rome Statute as a binding treaty. Sarili na po nating batas ang nagsasabi na kailangan natin makipag-ugnayan sa ICC kahit noong hindi pa tayo miyembro ng ICC. Lalo na noong tayo ay miyembro na. At kahit hindi na tayo miyembro ng ICC dahil sa makasariling pagkalas ni Duterte sa ICC noong 2018. Para sabihin natin na wala na tayong pakialam sa ICC, kailangan muna nating ipawalang bisa ang batas na ito. However, I respectfully submit, rather than repeal this law, we should now take steps to retract the self-serving act of Mr. Duterte to withdraw from the ICC in 2018. We must return to the fold of the ICC. We must rejoin the community of nations who have recognized the need for an international body of nations who have recognized to go after the perpetrators of the most terrible crimes against humanity, the hostis humani generis, the enemies of humankind. Mga kaaway lamang ng sangkatauhan ang takot sa pagsasanib puwersa ng mga bansa upang matigil ng pagpatay ng walang habas sa ngalan ng Estado. But having said that, I still appreciate so much, many people appreciate so much the efforts of this Quad Committee that can very well be indeed the Truth Commission. Kaya lang tindang natin, yung napaka-komplikado talaga ng usapin ng war of drugs. Kadaming biktima na hindi naman natin pwedeng busisiin lahat for every individual acts of killing. Kundi, dapat anuhin natin, maganda nga yung nangyayari doon sa mga revelasyon ni Colonel Garma na ganyan yung ginamit nilang model. At tinuturo mismo si Mr. Duterte. So ano lang siya? Supplemental, ano lang siya? It's just corroborating everything else that we know from news reports, from other information, and from yung mga nangyayari beginning in 2016. So I just shared my views on the need to rejoin ICC kasi you can never tell in the future ano man yung resulta ng itong ginagawang investigasyon ng Quad Committee na in the future we will have another tyrant, another mass killer for a president. So, ganun po ang aking opinion sa bagay na yan. Maraming salamat
Mr.
po.
Chair, thank you, Senator Laila De Lima, for your sharing with us in the Quadcom your opinion on the very important national issue of extrajudicial killings. So,
Clarificatory lang.
Congressman Abante, you're now recognized.
Former Senator, kailan niyo po itong napag-aralan? Nung kayo po ay CHR pa. CHR pa ho kayo?
Opo. I became a CHR chairperson in 2008. Noong 2009 po, sinimulan namin yung investigation into the Davao Death Squad killings. Dahil nga may mga impormasyon po kami noon. And nakita lalo namin yung report ni UN Special Rapporteur Philip Alston and some other reports like the one issued by the Human Rights Watch, You Can Die Anytime. The title of that is You Can Die Anytime, referring to the killings under this group, which are now euphemistically called the Davao Death Squad. Kaya lang po, if I may say so, na yung aking pong termino or yung aking pag-upo bilang CHR chairperson hanggang 2010 lang po. Dahil in 2010, na-appoint na po ako as Justice Secretary ng dating Pangulong Noynoy Aquino. So
pinagpatuloy niyo po ba yung investigasyon ng kayo Secretary of Justice Department?
Konti lang po yung mga nagawa ng DOJ nung Secretary na po ako. Although si Matobato, sumipot po siya, at we gave him, the DOJ gave him witness protection. Kaya lang, nung uupo na po in 2016, yung dating Pangulong Duterte, bilang Pangulo, ay umalis na po siya sa witness protection program. Yun po ang pagkakaalam ko. Pero meron po akong extensive personal investigation notes on what we gathered. Kasi yung mga nakausap namin in the course of that CHR inquiry na magaganda o mahalaga yung mga sinasabi nila, kasama na rin yung tungkol sa reward system, ay sila po yung mga kinausap lang namin ng mga sikreto lang kasi ayaw nilang humarap doon mismo sa open public inquiry ng CHR
Pero marami
noong
ho kayo
2009.
nakausap.
About, if I'm not mistaken, it's about 5 of them. At in-interview lang namin sila. Kasi sa karamihan sa kanila ay hindi naman ayaw pong mag-execute ng formal affidavit. But we interviewed them. That's why I took down notes, personal notes, and gumamit nga po sila ng mga aliases.
Pwede niyo po bang isubmit ang inyong findings sa committee?
Yes, I can share with this committee my personal investigation notes on the conduct of the CHR inquiry. Kasi pag alis ko nga po, wala pa yung resolution. Later on, the CHR under new leadership came out with a resolution. I think that was in June of 2012.
Okay, Mr. Chair, did you also submit that to the ICC? Your findings,
My personal notes, I think I have. My personal notes, at meron pa ho ako mga iba na mga shinare with the ICC.
One last question, Mr. Chair. I would like to refer to Colonel Espinosa. You were directly mentioned by the former senator. So will you please answer her now on that issue? Are you corroborating with the former senator on this, or?
Good morning, Your Honors, Mr. Chair. Good morning, ma'am. For me, as Chief of Police at that time in Albuera, I am one of endorsing the complaint to the DOJ. One of those names is Ma'am Leila de Lima for the affidavit that was already made by Mayor Espinosa together with his lawyer Villarino. So as Chief of Police, I am one who endorsed that complaint to the Ombudsman. But for me, as I remember when we talked with Ma'am de Lima in the Senate, that I'm telling her that, Ma'am, the truth will set you free. Because for me, I am innocent for that, as just only a Chief of Police who endorsed the complaint to the DOJ. But yung knowledge talaga, sir, hindi ko alam kung totoo na siya involved si Ma'am. No, as being Chief of Police lang, na yun talaga ang procedure na mag-endorse kung may mga complaint. Pero I believe at the time, Your Honors, Mr. Chair, na kinausap na si Mayor Espinosa kung nalaman naman ng buong mundo na si Mayor Espinosa was already there in Kamkrami to Sirbato for surrender. So pag turn over niya sa akin, dala na yung mga statement na ganon. So what I did is just only to endorse the complaint to the Ombudsman, Your Honors, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I'll be asking more questions later on.
Thank you, Congressman Abante. We have a list of those who will interpellate Senator Leila de Lima. And the first to interpellate is Congressman Raul Manuel. You are recognized. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning po sa fellow members ng Quadcom, sa mga resource persons din po natin. Mr. Chair, nabanggit po ni Senator Leila de Lima na ang leader mismo ng Davao Death Squad ay mismo yung dating mayor din, Mayor Rodrigo Duterte. Did I hear it right, Mr. Chair?
Yes, those are the claims of those witnesses that we talked to. That is also the claim of Edgar Matobato and Arturo Las Cañas.
At Mr. Chair, siya po yung merong alias na Superman bilang leader ng Davao Death Squad.
That is correct.
Mr. Chair, given na meron ngang mga rewards dun sa mga napapatay na mga suspects or involved di umano sa drug trade, Mr. Chair, ano ang source nitong binayad dun sa mga kasama yung mga informants, yung mga civilian na mga force multipliers, pati sa mga assassins?
Nabanggit ko po yan sa statement ko kanina o sa presentation ko kanina na meron nang gagaling from the Office of the Mayor itself, the intel funds from the Office of the Mayor. The DDS logistics and finances came from the Peace and Order or Intel Fund of MRRD. That's according to the CHR witnesses and also from Las Cañas ICC affidavit.
Mr. Chair, may we get once again yung breakdown, ano po yung mga pwedeng pinagpuntahan nitong intelligence funds? Halimbawa, as mentioned, meron pong pati mga Christmas gifts dun sa mga police na aktibong nagpatupad ng ganitong tipo ng giyera kontra droga.
Yes, yung nasa isang slide kanina, yung according to the CHR witness, kung ilan yung amount, kung magkano yung amount for the 1988 to 2000 period. Kasi sinabi ko kanina na actually 2 periods yung DDS. 1998 to 2000, then 2001 to 2016. Nagkaroon ng break nung naging congressman yung dating mayor. Now, so 15,000, 5,000 to the handler, 10,000 to the assassins, and then yung sa 13,000 to 15,000, 3,000 to 5,000 for the handler, 7,000 to 8,000 for the assassins, and 500 to 1,000 for civilian informant abanteros. They call them abanteros. Yung kay Mr. Las Cañas naman, ang sinabi niya sa kanyang affidavit, DDS members were paid anywhere from 10,000 to 20,000 for every victim. Yun yung sa mga ordinary victims. At yun naman, meron naman tinatawag na special project killings, mas mataas. They were rewarded anywhere from 100,000 to 1 million pesos depending on the status of the target. Yun po ang mga natandaan ko nung binasa ko yung affidavit ni Mr. Las Cañas, at doon din po nung binasa ko at review ko yung aking personal investigation notes from the CHR investigation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, merong nabanggit din na merong weekly gas allowance. Bahagi po ba iyon ng bayad sa mga police na nagpatupad ng Davao level war on drugs? Merong weekly gas allowance, may
Yes.
bukod pang cash allowance, tsaka
Yes.
Christmas gifts.
According to Mr. Las Cañas, this includes weekly gas allowance, monthly cash allowance, and Christmas cash gifts.
Mr. Chair, ano po ang pagtingin ng ating resource person, Senator Laila de Lima? Kasi kung ang nabanggit ni Colonel Garma ay pinatupad ang Davao model from, ang scope lang ay sa Davao City at ginawa itong isang nationwide na drug campaign. At ang source ng funding para dun sa rewards, Mr. Chair, ay ang intelligence fund sa Davao City. Posible po ba na ang ginamit din dun naman sa nationwide na war on drugs ay ang intelligence funds, pero this time ay yung intelligence funds ng Office of the President?
Mr. Chair, Your Honors, the possibility is always there, but I have no knowledge about that. I don't know that. Wala pa po akong nakita na mga dokumento na nasa akin na yun talaga ang source nung drug war na from 2016 up to 2022. But it's quite possible kasi meron talagang reward system. We can only surmise at this point in the absence of direct evidence na meron talagang magsasabi kung saan talaga yun ang galing. Maybe sila Colonel Garma, sina Colonel Leonardo, baka alam nila because they were part of that. Si Colonel Garma, yung inutusan, according to her, na maghanap ng pwedeng mag-implement ng drug war based on the Davao model. And this is, yung sinabi ko kanina, this was the Davao model. May kasamang mga reward, may kasamang mga cash incentives, may bracketing din. Depende kung sino involved, kung sino papatayin. And so that's the reward, that's the incentives. So, posible rin na gumamit uli ng Intel Fund, this time from the office of the President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I proceed sa iba kong tanong, dahil Mr. Chair, kung doon pa lang sa unang taon ng pagpapatupad ng war on drugs sa ilalim ni former President Rodrigo Duterte, doon sa Committee on Human Rights, nakuha nating figure at mismo ay yun pa yung sinight na accomplishment sa report ng Presidential Communications Office ay umabot sa nasa ilang tens of thousands. Kung ang iti-take nating figure, Mr. Chair, ay 20,000, kasama doon yung mismo ay confirmed na police yung pumatay, tapos maging yung mga vigilante killings, Mr. Chair, na ang pumatay ay pwedeng hindi kilalang mga tao, pero bahagi yun ng tinuturing na tagumpay, di umano, ng war on drugs. Kinumpit kasi natin, Mr. Chair, kung 20,000, doon pa lang sa time frame na yon, 20,000 na yung mga napatay. Tapos, kung yung minimum na reward ay 50,000, assuming pa lang na mga small time or yung mga peddlers, yung mga pinatay, Mr. Chair, at least aabot ko, i-multiply natin, Mr. Chair, 20,000 times 50,000, kakailanganin ang nasa 1 billion pesos pa lang dun sa mga reward sa pagpatay, Mr. Chair. Hindi pa kasama dito yung mga allowances, yung mga kung merong mga weekly gas allowance pa rin, weekly cash allowance at iba pa. Sa rewards pa lang, Mr. Chair, sa ganong time frame, 1 billion pesos na ang kailangan. Pero Mr. Chair, kung ikukumpara kasi natin sa intelligence funds pa lang ng PNP, and let's take yung first year ng Duterte administration, ang intelligence funds ng PNP noong 2017 ay nasa 468 million pesos lamang, Mr. Chair. Walang kalahating bilyong piso ang intelligence funds ng PNP. So kung ganun, Mr. Chair, saan pwede talagang kumuha nung ganun kalaking pera bilang pangbayad, bilang premyo doon sa mga pulis na nakapatay? Kaya Mr. Chair, kung magpo-process of elimination tayo, dahil PNP lang naman yung pwedeng ahensya, sana na pagkunan ng ganun. Pero then again, kahit yung intelligence funds ng PNP hindi sapat. So wala nang ibang agency, Mr. Chair, na merong mas malaki pang intelligence funds na pwedeng pagkunan, walang iba kundi yung mismong Office of the President. Lalo na kung itutugma din natin yan dun sa mga testimonya na merong mga taga-presidential management staff na bahagi rin nung channel, nung reward system na ito mula sa presidente patungo sa mga kasunod na mga level ng mga police officers, maging si Senator Bongo, si PNP Chief Bato de la Rosa, at iba pang mga dating opisyal under the Duterte administration. Kaya with that, Mr. Chair, tingin natin meron ding sapat na batayan para atin na ring silipin paano ginamit ng Duterte administration ang kanyang intelligence funds. Darating din sa punto, Mr. Chair, na dapat ay mag-issue na rin tayo ng subpoena ducis tecum sa mga dokumento na sinubmit ng Office of the President to COA, to the Commission on Audit, para talaga mabusisin natin kung ano yung naging justifications for the use of intelligence funds by the Office of the President under Rodrigo Duterte. So, kasunod, Mr. Chair, kasunod na tanong kay Senator Laila De Lima, nabanggit po kasi ang tungkol sa quarry mass grave. At kung isipin ko palang kahindik-hindik ito, Mr. Chair, kaya pasintabi na lang po sa ating mga kababayan na baka sa ganitong oras ay kumakain habang nanonood sa Quadcom hearing. Mr. Chair, meron po bang binigay na description yung kung sino mang witness patukol sa paano ba na-facilitate ang ganitong mga mass grave? Paano gumagana yung, paano hinahandle ang ganitong mga mass grave?
Mr. Chair, Your Honors, kasama po kasi sa organizational structure ng DDS, ay yung pinakita po kanina, na there is this SPO4 Bienvenido Laod as team handler and in charge of the Laod Quarry Mass Grave. Nandyan din po yung si SPO3 Jim Tan as team handler and in charge of the Mandog Mass Grave. Doon pa lang ho, nung nag-iimbesti kami sa 2009, may mga nakapagsabi na po sa amin na meron ganyan na mga mass graves kung saan tinatapon yung mga naging biktima ng DDS. Now, sinubukan ho namin na puntahan yung sa Laod Quarry. Kaya lang, nung pagdating po namin doon, mukhang hindi ho namin naabot yung exact location kasi the Laod property is a hilly part. Medyo ano po yun, parang hill. And then, akala namin hanggang dun lang at a certain point, nakakita kami ng ilan-ilan, konti lang, na human remains, skull. Pero, we learned later na hindi naman pala doon yung mga talagang mass grave of that property. It was in a higher portion of the Laod property, na nandun nga daw po yung karamihan ng mga tinatapon nila na mga pinatay. So there are actually several mass graves from various sources. Yung Laod, and then yung Mandog mass grave, and then meron din ho sa Samal Island. Yun po ang mga impormasyon na nakuha namin. So we actually applied for search warrant. But then, nag-quinash ho ng isang RTC of Manila or Quezon City, I'm not sure anymore. Later, na reverse yung quashal of the search warrant ng Court of Appeals. And then eventually, the Supreme Court in 2014 affirmed the validity of the search warrant or affirmed the decision of the Court of Appeals. Kaya lang, wala na hong naging follow-up implementation of the warrant of arrest, either by CHR or by PNP, because I think because by 2014, insofar as CHR is concerned, its investigation closed already when it submitted or issued its resolution of June 2012. So hindi na po na follow up yung ano sana ng mga mass graves na yan.
Mr. Chair, may nabanggit na tatlong location ng mga mass grave. Doon sa course ng investigation ni Senator Laila bilang dating chairperson ng Commission on Human Rights, meron po bang credible estimate kung ilan itong mga mass grave na ito na siyang facilitate ng Davao Death Squad bilang bahagi ng war on drugs?
It was difficult to really determine to come up with a credible figure. Ang natatandaan ko po, yung si Edgar Matobato, meron din po siyang sinabi tungkol dyan. I'm not sure if he actually mentioned any number with respect dun sa mga alam niya na mga linibing nila. In fact, in some of those, participant talaga siya sa paglilibing, kasama yung mga iba pang miyembro ng DDS. So I have to check from Mr. Matobato's affidavit, and also his testimony before the Senate, kung meron siya talagang nabanggit na estimate of the number. But again, I think it would be difficult really na makuha natin kung ilan talaga yung mga linibing doon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Pero Mr. Chair, at least, so far alam natin, merong at least 3 na mga mass grave. Tama po ba?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kasi Mr. Chair, isipin pa lang natin kahit nga isang mass grave pa lang ay sobrang heinous na ng kung sino man yung mga gagawa ng isang ganong bagay. Tapos doon lang basta-basta magtatambak ng mga bangkay ng mga tao na merong mga pamilya, 'di ba? Merong mga pinanggagalingan din, merong mga gusto sanang gawin sa buhay pero napatay na lang ng gano'n na lamang. Mr. Chair, meron po ba kahit isa lang doon sa mga bangkay mula sa mga mass grave na na-retrieve pa para maibalik sa kanilang mga pamilya?
Wala po ako matandaan.
At Mr. Chair, meron din bang mga pamilya na lumapit sa CHR dahil ang suspecha po nila ay dahil hindi na nila mahanap yung kanilang mga pamilya, sila po ay nag-isip na baka nasa mass grave na yung bangkay ng kanilang mga kamag-anak. May ganun po bang mga instances?
Wala po akong ma-recall if there are really families ng mga victims sa DDS killings na lumapit sa CHR para hanapin yung kanilang mga bangkay. Ang alam ko, because it's more recent, is that may mga families of victims who visited me when I was in jail at Camp Crame at the PNP Custodial Center, and there were quite a number of them who relayed to me yung mga naging experience nila, yung tungkol sa pagpatay under the war on drugs. But as to the mass graves, again, I will have to review my personal notes. Comprehensive po yung aking personal notes, and I'll have to check that out. Mr. Chair, Your Honors.
Mr. Chair, noong ginawa ng nationwide model, yung model ng war on drugs galing sa Davao, na pinamunuan nung then Mayor Rodrigo Duterte. Mr. Chair, dahil I would assume na hindi na ganun kadaling mag-set up ng mga mass graves, lalo na kung ginawa halimbawa yung Oplan Tokhang sa mga urban centers. So, in that case, ay based dun sa initial investigations nung si Senator Leila de Lima ay nag-lead na po ng isang komite sa Senado, ano na po yung kadalasang paraan para ma-dispose yung bangkay ng mga naging biktima, no? Kahit ng mga innocenteng biktima ng war on drugs?
Siyempre yung mga sa salvaging. Pero alam niyo po about the Senate inquiry. I was the chairperson of the Senate Committee on Justice and Human Rights, but I was able to preside or conduct only an inquiry for 3 hearings. Kasi po after the 3rd hearing, kung saan prinisenta ko po si Edgar Matobato, ay inalis na po ako bilang chairperson of that committee by the majority of my colleagues then. So iba na po yung nagpatuloy. Because in that Senate inquiry, gusto ko sana talagang tukuyin na yung mga killings na yan, starting in 2016, are really state-sponsored or state-inspired. Kaya lang, as I would remember, may naka-ready actually na about 13 CHR witnesses from the CHR na pinovide sa Senate Committee on Justice and Human Rights. Pero 2 pa lang po yung nai-present ko, and also si Mr. Edgar Matobato, but I was already ousted as a CHR chairperson. Now, after the 3rd hearing, what I recall is that 3 more hearings were done under a new chairperson. Pero, it was abruptly terminated kasi they did not even call the other available CHR witnesses na ready sanang i-present before I was ousted as CHR chairperson. They did not even present them. So, ang nangyari, they issued the findings, the resolution, and one of the core finding is that there's no evidence that the killings at that time were actually state-sponsored. Something that I wanted to prove sana kung hinayaan lang po ako Although, of course, I could understand that perhaps it was such a tough job, a tough challenge for me to prove it. Especially that nandyan pa yung dating Pangulo sa poder, na nahihirapan pa na talagang kumuha ng mga iba pa, ng mga witnesses, especially from within. Hindi katulad po ngayon na naglalabasan na po sila. May mga insiders na po na sinasabi na kung ano yung mga nalalaman nila, but not during that time. Pero I wanted to do it. After sana the presentation of those CHR witnesses, these are individual accounts of individual cases of summary execution during operations, yung mga sinasabi nilang nanlaban, pero hindi naman pala nanlaban. I was also looking at the medical certificates, the various medical certificates that we got. Marami po yun. At ang dami talaga mga kaduda-duda doon. And of course, we summoned then PNP Chief Bato de la Rosa and other officials of the PNP, but they were all denying that these are the workings of PNP forces, or that these are cases of EJKs, and let alone state-sponsored killings. So yun po. So nothing came out. It was
Kindly-
almost a whitewash.
Kindly
Yes.
wrap up, please.
Yes, huling topic, Mr. Chair, since na-present din ang relation ng ating local law dun sa ICC or yung International Criminal Court. Since some camps would say na hindi dapat tayo maging open sa quote-unquote intervention, no? Ganun yung tinatawag sa mga hakbang na ginagawa ng International Criminal Court, since dapat daw ay ipatupad natin yung ating sariling batas. Huwag daw tayong pumayag na panghimasukan tayo, no? Ganun yung pagtingin sa ginagawa ng ICC. But since Senator Laila mentioned yung Section 17 ng RA 9851, tama po ba yung aking interpretation, Mr. Chair, na pinapatupad pa rin naman natin yung ating local law, which is yung RA 9851, if the Philippine government cooperates with the International Criminal Court? Dahil sa committee nga po natin, Mr. Chair, sa Committee on Human Rights and Committee on Justice, we approved a resolution. We are urging, as part of the legislative, we are urging the executive na mag-cooperate sa ICC when it comes to this war on drugs. So, ibig sabihin, Mr. Chair, we are not surrendering our sovereignty. We are actually implementing the intent of our domestic laws kapag mag-cooperate ang Philippine government sa ICC. Tama po ba yung aking pagtingin, Mr. Chair?
Tama po yan, Mr. Chair and Your Honors. Dahil nga nandyan ang batas. In fact, nauna pa yan, 2009, before the Senate ratified the Rome Statute. But yung Rome Statute po was signed as early as 2000. I was just reminded by Attorney Conte earlier that it was actually signed by the former President Erap Estrada. Kaya lang, the ratification took some time. So it was only in 2011. But before that, pinasa nga itong RA 9851. And sa pagbabasa ko nga po ng mga provisions ng 9851, it is as if those who pushed for that are actually anticipating that there would be an international body that would be coming in or would be involved in the investigation of crimes that would fall under any of those crimes cognizable by ICC, including crimes against humanity. Kaya nila siguro pinasok yung Section 17 na yan. Malinaw sa akin na kahit may investigasyon tayo dito, pwede pa tayong makipag-cooperate. And there's nothing in the Rome Statute which says, except the complementarity principle, na ang hinihintay kasi ng ICC ay yung genuine investigation focusing on those with the highest or the greatest responsibility. If I may just quote from the ICC pre-trial chamber's decision, in January 26, 2023, decision authorizing the resumption of the investigation. Ang naging conclusion nila, kaya they ordered for the resumption of the proceedings of the ICC investigation at dinismiss nila yung appeal ng Philippine government. And I quote, "The domestic proceedings in the Philippines do not sufficiently mirror the expected scope of the court's investigation, since they only address the physical low-ranking perpetrators and at present do not extend to any high-ranking officials." Further, the ICC pretrial chamber said, "The chamber finds that the PH has failed to demonstrate that the Philippines has failed to demonstrate that it has conducted relevant investigations and prosecution with respect to 4 issues." This was in 2023, as I said, ito yung decision nila authorizing the resumption. Number 1, the alleged killings in Davao from 2011 to 2016, which is within the duration of the ICC investigation. Pwede lang kasi mag-imbestiga yung ICC from yung sa 2011 up to 2019 when the withdrawal became effective. Number 2, crimes other than murder committed in connection with the war on drugs. 3, the killings outside official police operations, meaning yung mga riding in tandem, yung mga hindi natin sigurado kung mga police ba yan or are these agents of police officers, yung mga assassins. And number 4, and this is very important, the responsibility of individuals beyond the physical perpetrators of the alleged crimes. So ang hinihintay nila, yung mga tunay na investigasyon targeting or involving yung mga nasa taas, beginning with the former president, who is clearly the mastermind as he induced the killings. And that is becoming clearer and clearer as nakikita natin dito sa mga lumalabas sa Quadcom hearing. Then that is the complementarity principle. Since hindi pa nila nakikita may tunay na investigasyon, and when they say investigation or proceedings, they are clearly referring to criminal proceedings. So ito pong magiging resulta ng Quadcom. Fine, I think we can be hopeful and optimistic na may mga lalabas. Pero later po, o may lalabas na resolusyon na can also categorically identify yung mga nasa taas based on the evidence na makakalap o kinakalap na ngayon ng Quad Committee. But later, kung hanggang doon lang po at hanggang doon lang yung mga gagawin din ng Kongreso, because ang mandato ng Kongreso is, in aid of legislation to enact laws, it could only recommend to the other relevant agencies and offices kung ano pa mga dapat gawin, including the investigation. Kung wala talaga yung investigasyon na yan, hindi po natin pwedeng pigilan ang ICC. Because yun na yung sinabi nila. Kasi hindi pa naman talaga tina-target, puro lang sa low level. Tsaka yung ICC is not actually focusing on the low level. It's not possible for them to look into each and every case of killings under war on drug. Kaya doon sila nakatuon sa mga those with the greatest responsibility. So,
Okay,
yun po.
so to wrap up, Mr. Chair.
This is your last question, Congressman
Yes.
Manuel. Thank
Yes,
you.
just a closing manifestation, Mr. Chair, na batay dun sa mga narinig natin, habang yung mga nasa tuktok kasi dati na ngayon ay dapat sanang sumagot sa mga tanong natin ay naghahanap ng iba't ibang paraan para makaiwas o parang nakipagpatintero tayo sa kanila, Mr. Chair. Kaya sa totoo lang dapat ay ma-exhaust natin yung iba't ibang mga paraan para talaga maisulong yung hustisya para dun sa mga naging biktima ng extrajudicial killings. At bahagi niyan, Mr. Chair, habang meron tayong mga ganitong investigasyon, actually, yung pagsulong din ng investigasyon ng ICC, it complements our efforts dito sa bansa natin. And also, Mr. Chair, yung fact din na dahil nga mula sa Davao ay in-apply on a nationwide scale kung ano yung kanilang approach dun sa Davao at intelligence funds yung ginamit nila doon. We also observe a pattern, Mr. Chair, na from just 250 million pesos na level ng intelligence funds for the Office of the President, lumobo pa ito to 1.25 billion pesos. Kaya, Mr. Chair, malaki yung posibilidad talaga na ito din ay isa sa pinagmulan ng pera para mapagana yung peke at madugong war on drugs. Kaya dapat din ay mabusisi natin paano yan ginamit ng Duterte administration. Yun lang, Mr. Chair.
Para sa iba pang karagdagang mga balita at impormasyon, ay huwag po nating kalimutang mag-like, share at comment sa video na ito, at huwag po rin nating kalimutang mag-subscribe to continue supporting us. Maraming salamat po sa inyong panonood, at naway tangkilikin po ninyo ang aming YouTube channel.